We're live. We're going.
We are.
So hit it, Celeste.
All right. Thanks, guys, for coming on. I know it's super early, Michael, where you are, and Grayson, y'all are, on top of it this morning. I would not look that good at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Grayson's been on. He's been at work since 6:30, and I've been at work since about 4. So yeah, we're early risers here, man. By the time you guys have lunch, we're already done with our day, or I should say, we've already got about 8 hours in. That's all. But we work part-time here at ClubWealth. We believe that you can work the first 12 or the second 12 hours of the day. It's up to you.
Okay, so, there you go. All right, so Michael, Mark, Grayson. Grayson, you are an agent and you actually use our system every day. Mark, you're a coach for ClubWealth. So I think that both of y'all are going to bring, great insight to the day-to-day, how prospecting works in real estate. And Michael, your, background, your knowledge in real estate sales in general is going to be phenomenal. So I'm really excited about our session today. So we'll jump right into it. I am going to ask just a few questions. Michael, why don't you introduce ClubWealth and tell us a little bit about it and what you do and why you love doing what you do. Sure.
So ClubWealth is the #1 coaching and consulting company in the team and brokerage space. So essentially what that means is that while we work with agents at all levels, whether they're brand new in the business or running the biggest teams in the country, our typical agent does about 200 transactions a year and produces a very, very high level. My role with the company is I'm one of the coaches like Mark at ClubWealth. Prior to being, now I'm a full-time coach today, but prior to being a coach, I sold real estate I'm in my 30th year now in real estate and ran the #1 team in the country for a very long time. We were very consistently closing 120 to 180 homes a month and had 750 active and pending listings at one point. And then Grayson, if I could take the liberty to kind of introduce Grayson a little bit. Grayson is one of our sales guys on our team. So he's actually not a real estate agent. Grayson works full-time for ClubWealth, calling on real estate agents, and he uses ProspectBoss on a daily basis. And so I thought we'd bring Grayson on to have him share his feelings about ProspectBoss, how well it works for him, all that good stuff. And then of course, Mark is one of our coaches. Yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, or ClubWealth in a nutshell.
Awesome. Mark, tell us about how being a coach has impacted your day-to-day life.
Well, not only am I a coach, but like all the coaches at ClubWealth, I'm also a full-time real estate agent. I own a real estate group and a team called the Boulevard Group in Wichita, Kansas. And last year we sold 140 homes with our group. And we hope to do a whole heck of a lot more than that this year. But as a coach at ClubWealth, I've been in coaching for a long time. I've coached and mentored people on a full-time basis. I owned a coaching and consulting firm years ago outside the real estate space in corporate America, basically calling on Fortune 1,000 companies, small, medium-sized business companies all over the country, and built a very dynamic business and transitioned into real estate and found a home at ClubWealth, helping other real estate agents as they get started. My niche is kind of new agents, people who've sold somewhere, between 0 and maybe 25 or 30 units, people just kind of starting out. And prospecting for them is the most important thing that they could possibly do, other than making sure they take care of their wife or husband as well.
Right.
Other than those 2 items are the most important. And I just get a lot of fulfillment out of seeing people grow and move on to new coaches that will help them grow their business even more. So it's been very impactful for me, and ClubWealth is definitely a great place for that.
Excellent. All right, Grayson, your turn.
Sure. So just to kind of piggyback off what my dad said, I think prospecting is really important wherever you're at in your business, not really just, 0 to 30 units, but if you're not constantly bringing business in for yourself, you're eventually going to run out, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're closing 120 deals a year. I mean, I'm sure Michael was prospecting, maybe not just dialing the phone all the time, but he was still prospecting, right? So Now with Prospect Boss, I think Prospect Boss in particular is fantastic just because, you know, you can dial so many people so fast. I can dial 100 people in 20 minutes, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, it's really, really important.
Well, based on your numbers from yesterday, that makes me wonder what you did the other 7.5 hours yesterday. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time, Grayson. But you know, the reality is he's right about Prospect Boss. You know, it helps you really up your numbers, right? And we talked about, Mark was talking about, you know, and both of them talked a little bit about lead generation. And really, there's 3 things you have to do in your business every single day. If you want to succeed in real estate or any other business, there's 3 things you have to do it and master at a high level. And that's lead generation, lead follow-up, and lead conversion. Now, what's interesting is that most people, they get hung up in everything else in their business. They don't want to do those 3 things because those are the 3 things that are hardest to do, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're also the things that pay the most, right? So what you got to look at too is, where am I in my business? So to Mark's point, if I'm in tier 1, if I'm doing 0 to 25 transactions a year, prospecting for FSBOs, expireds, cold calls, all that kind of stuff is probably a pretty big part of my business at that point. That and my sphere of influence are probably my 2 primary lead sources at that point. Maybe I'm doing some open houses too. But really what happens is I'm chasing business instead of attracting business, right? And you need to do that in order to get enough money so that, you know, because in the beginning, you've got more time than money.
Right.
So in the beginning, I've got to leverage my time because I don't have the money to just buy leads and all that stuff. So I got to leverage my time by picking up the phone, getting on the phone with people and setting appointments. And so Prospect Boss allows me to get a lot more people in a shorter amount of time. And what that means is I can set more appointments per day. So the goal should be, at a bare minimum, I got to set 1 appointment a day. But really, if I want to move from tier 1 to tier 2 being 25 to 75 transactions a year, I got to start setting two appointments a day. Yep. And that's work. That's a lot of work. Even to Grayson's point, when I was doing 120 to 180 transactions a month, what was I doing? I was making 115 to 125 follow-up calls per day.
Yes.
But that's because my business had matured and I was able to start attracting business instead of chasing business. But early in your business, you're going to have to do this at a high level. You're going to have to make those phone calls at a high level. Mark, I'm curious, how many calls do you make a day right now?
My calls a day are standard, basically 40 to 60 calls a day. And what I really strive for is consistency every single day. In a growing team, and you know, going out on listing appointments, going out on buyer appointments, doing research, running a business. I find that if I stay consistent, that's about a 2-hour effort, an hour to 2-hour effort. But what I really focus on is the number. And so depending on my pace of my day, I have a certain number that I do every day, but I do it every single day. That's the key, you know. And I do use a dialer a lot. I use CRMs to be able to increase my ability, depending on what type of prospecting I'm doing. I do a lot of follow-up calls, and the data sources that I use, unfortunately, it's a 1-to-1 call. You know, it's a dial 1 at a time, and there's really no way to speed that up. But especially when I'm in expires and doing some of the other things. But what I really strive for and try to work with my clients on is consistency. I'll take a 5-day-a-week or 6-day-a-week consistent performer who makes 25 to 40 calls a day over somebody who sits down and does 200 in a day, any day.
Yeah.
Because it's the consistency that makes the difference. And having a great programs like Prospect Boss, where you can sift and sort the data and manage the data and make a lot of calls in a short amount of time. I know my numbers very specifically. And when you can increase your numbers by making a lot of calls, then you can get there quickly. So for instance, I know for every 40 calls that I make, right, I'm going to talk to basically 10 to 12 people. For every 7.56 conversations, I'm going to set an appointment.
Okay.
So if I have more time, I can set more appointments. That's all it comes down to. But I know those numbers, and they bear out because they've been tracked over months and months and months, and now over a couple of years, right? So knowing that, we just plug that in, and bringing a great product like Prospect Boss, and knowing the numbers, get that consistency, you can start to get basically predictable revenue. You can start figuring out how many appointments I have to have to how many closed sales, and I can back it all up to how many calls I had to make. So at the end of the day, consistency is the key, understanding and tracking those numbers. And that's what I do. And that's what I try to instill and have been for many years into clients.
Excellent. When you have new agents, you know, in that tier 1 bracket, that 0 to 25 transactions, what is your standard, what do you want them to do? What do you ask them to do in terms of prospecting? Is it simply sitting down for, 2 hours and making those calls? Is it, sending out some text messages or some emails? What is it that you ask brand new agents to do for prospecting?
Well, one of the key things, and one of the things that really kind of upped my game when I was coming to ClubWealth a couple of years ago, was a really strict adherence to what Michael would call the perfect daily schedule. Okay. And time blocking that number. And I have this argument with my clients all the time. I do not see anybody before noon. I don't take appointments before noon. I don't go on inspections before noon. I don't go to closings before noon. I don't do any of that stuff. I prospect from 8 until 10 a.m. every single day. And then I have some other follow-up prospecting things I do from 10 until about 11:15. So every once in a while, something will bleed into right before the lunch hour or something like that. That very seldom go to lunch. But what we ask our clients to do is get very specific about what they're going to do. Michael talked about being in the office, early, and they start earlier. Grayson does start work at 6:30 every day. I'm up at 4:25 every day, and I run, and there's a whole bunch of other things I do. I generally hit my work day about 7:30, right? And then my preparation happens at 8 o'clock. We're on the phone. We're calling expire. We ask our clients to do that exact same thing. We find the perfect daily schedule for them. It's not the same as mine. Right. Because they may have children have to get to school. There's all kinds of things, but we block that time and have strict adherence to that time. During that time is that prospect. It's not only just on the phone. I mean, it could be text messaging. It could be some follow-ups. It could be there, but most of the time it's in some sort of active prospecting mode. There's other times during the day where we're doing other things that are less active but are still attractive, right? But during that time, we block it, and you have to get militant about it. You have to let people know, don't bother me. You got to put a sign on your door. You got to tell your wife, your spouse, your kids, the dogs, leave me alone for the next 2 hours, because this is when I make my money.
Yeah.
And
it's funny you say that.
You have to be focused.
Right. It's funny you say that, because I refer to prospecting as money-making activities. So that is the term that I use for it. So when people, ask me when we're talking about prospecting, I'm like, you have to be doing those money-making activities, whatever they are. If it's calling, if it's texting, if it's emailing, if it's, sending out mailers, they're money-making activities. Those are the things that are going to bring you business, whether it's today or 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now. But if you stop those money-making activities, that consistency, like you were talking about, Mark, is huge. So, if you don't prospect today, it may not affect you today, but it could affect you in 2 weeks.
It's interesting you bring that up. I always tell people, show me your habits, I'll tell you your future, right? Mm-hmm. Because our habits define us. Our habits define what level of success we'll have in life. If I know, if I look at someone's previous week, right? If I go into their calendar for last week and I look at it and I can see what they actually did last week, and if I know their average sales price in their market, I can tell you pretty close what they're going to make next year based on their habits. It's really not rocket science. It's just simple math. And so we really want to get people into the habit of being successful and doing those 3 key things: lead generation, lead follow-up, lead conversion. Now there's actually over 2,000 lead sources in real estate today, right? Out of those 2,000 lead sources, we recommend about 109 of them to our coaching clients. And what I'll do is at the end today, I'll give everybody, here in just a couple of minutes, I'll give everybody a chance to grab 17 of our top lead sources that we recommend to our clients. But understand this, it changes based on what tier you're in. It changes based on where your business is at. If you're a tier 1, for example, you're going to spend a lot more time making phone calls than you will if you're a tier 4. If I'm doing, 150 to 250 transactions a year, or even 75 to 150 transactions a year, guess what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be doing other things besides prospecting all day. I'll probably be spending more of my time on follow-up and less of my time on actual lead generation, because my lead generation will be automated at that point. Right. But to get there, I got to prospect. I got to pick up the phone. And no matter what tier I'm in, I've got to understand that real estate's a contact sport, right? The more people I contact, the more money I make. Yep. I got to make sure that I'm having conversations, and everything we do is designed to lead to a voice-to-voice as soon as possible. And then as soon as possible thereafter, a face-to-face conversation. This is a press the flesh business, right? Even during COVID, even when COVID was in full swing and everybody was freaking out, even then it was about getting voice to voice and face to face as often and as quickly as humanly possible. Now, I think one of the things that we've got to touch on, if we want to really do a good job with our prospecting, I think we got to talk about conversion. I think, because first of all, the lead generation side of it, that's, the making the calls and getting somebody on the phone. Then when I've got to do my lead follow-up, right? I'm gonna have to call those same people over and over and over and over again. And that's really where the money's at. It's in the lead follow-up. But here's the reality. Let's assume that I'm doing a great job on lead generation and I'm doing a great job on lead follow-up, which, by the way, most agents aren't doing a great job of either one of those. But let's assume that I was. Then I got to convert. And here's the problem with what's being taught out there. There are still coaches today that would tell you, hey, unless someone is an 8, 9, or 10 on the motivation scale, and you're pretty sure they're going to list with you, you shouldn't go on that appointment. That is horrible freaking advice. That is the worst thing you can possibly do. What you need to do is, if somebody can fog a freaking mirror and they have a home to sell, you need to get out there and be Jerry freaking Maguire in their living room, right? I mean, that's what you got to do. The problem is that everybody is. I had a very good friend of mine who's actually works for a home builder. He's a vice president of one of the country's largest home builders, and he was looking to buy a home for he and his wife. This guy can write a check for whatever he wants, right? So he's texting this agent that's got this house listed that he wants to go see. And the agent comes back with, well, yeah, that's great. We if you'd like to go see the house, we have to get you pre-approved first. I can't show you the house until we get you pre-approved. Mm-hmm. This guy was so livid. He lit me up with a text message. He's like, this SOB agent, I'm so mad, blah, 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 curse word this, curse word that. He was freaking out. He's like, I freaking hate real estate agents. I hope Zillow takes over this freaking world and puts all of them out of business. Why? Because the agent forgot that first and foremost, we are in a service industry. We have to serve people. We have to quit making people jump through our freaking hoops. You know who's better at conversion than real estate agents? Can any of the three of you guess? What industry is better than real estate at converting clients? Here it is. It's drug dealers, right? Some of the dumbest people on the planet, but why are they so good at converting people? Because the drug dealer says, hey, here's a little taste for free, right? Just try the product out. And then they get you hooked. And it's basically their deal is first one's free, then you got to pay, right? Yep. Well, as real estate agents, we keep telling people, well, you got to pay me. You got to get pre-approved. You got to do this. You got to do that, and sign up by your Instagram, and then I'll go show you a house. Worst thing you can do. Set the freaking appointment. Get face-to-face with them. Mark, I guarantee you close better face-to-face than you do over the phone. And I know you to be a good closer over the phone, but would you agree that you close better in person, face-to-face than you
absolutely. Absolutely. But if you set up the phone call right, you've already got half the close done before you get there to begin with, right? And there's this clear set of expectations about what's going to happen. First and foremost, it's always that. It's always set that appointment first. It's always, okay, great. I can be available, 2:00 tomorrow afternoon. I'll meet you at the house. Hey, real quick, before I let you go, I hit them with a few questions. We get it set up. Then we get out there. It's a very natural, smooth process at that point. Right?
That's right.
So having the right kind of conversations. You talk about somebody who's closing these days, though. It's that kid right next to you.
That's right.
It's closing all kinds of stuff. And I'm curious as to how he's doing, because he does all his on the phone. I'm curious as to, what one of his secrets is.
What do you think, Grayson? What's the key for you to get to closing people over the phone?
Sure. It's a good question. I don't really know. It's not that I don't know, but You know, you just, and what I really do what my dad taught me to do, you know, when I first started doing them, I'm just getting better at doing it now, which is really just the pain funnel, you know. I talk with them and I figure out what's going on in their business. I figure out what some of the issues are that's really causing them to even want to take that call with me in the first place. And then we try to put a dollar sign behind it. And if they agree with that dollar sign and how much money that's really costing them on a you know, a monthly basis or an annual basis, then, you know, it's really not that hard, because if that number is bigger, and it usually is significantly bigger than the cost of coaching, it's a really no brainer for the intelligent people.
That's awesome.
So,
I love it. That's great. Well, Celeste, I know we're running out of time. Is there anything you want to make sure we cover before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I just kind of want to know, Grayson, since you use the system day in and day out, I assume that you primarily make calls, correct?
yeah.
Do you use any of the other features of the system? So do you text message? Do you send emails? Do you do any of that kind of like follow-up drips or anything like that?
We don't do a whole lot other than using the calling campaign. I use the calling composition a lot, though. I found that to come in handy quite a bit, actually, because sometimes whenever I talk to somebody, and because we have to check our system to see if they're already in there, right?
Okay.
And that's kind of a process. And while the phone's dialing, because it's automatic, which is nice. But whenever I'm trying to look somebody up after I just get off the phone and their name goes away, I can pull that list up and I can see exactly who I was talking to. I can write their name down and their phone number, and I have all the time I need. But those are really the only things that we use. We have different emails and stuff like that.
Okay. So in any line of work, there's going to be some kind of, you know, pull between your personal life and your work life, and you know, getting up at, you know, 4 a.m. That's going to affect your home life at some point. So how do you balance it? How do you balance that work life schedule and separating the two, or do you do a blended mesh, all of you?
I think, first of all, I think Mark nailed it. I mean, it really comes down to your perfect daily schedule. You've got to be vigilant about it. And it comes back down to those habits. You've got to decide that your schedule is going to dictate your day. And when you allow your schedule to dictate to your day, and you only do what is in your schedule and you don't do anything that's outside your schedule, guess what? You have the ability to be in control of your day now. When you start accepting willy-nilly, you know, interruptions from team members, interruptions from clients, interruptions from anybody for that matter, then guess what? All you're doing is when you say yes to that, you're saying no to your family time, because now you've still got certain things that got to get done that day. Now you're going to eat into your family time. So if you really want to spend time with your family, you got to block it out just like any other appointment, and you got to hold that for sacred, just like you would a listing appointment with $1 million seller.
Yep.
The reason why I get up at 4 a.m. is so it doesn't affect my family time.
Okay.
I get up, I run. You're talking about running. I get up, I run sometimes 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 miles. I've gotten up at 2:30 in the morning and run before, so I can spend time with my family and stuff afterwards and evening. So I do that for them, not in spite of them.
Gotcha.
Yep. It's good stuff.
All right. Any last piece of advice?
So here's my last piece of advice. Grab your cell phone right now. Everybody grab your cell phone, and I want you to text the words ClubWealth to the following number, 727-287-5993. Send the words ClubWealth to 727-287-5993. When you do, I'm going to send you 17 of our top lead sources. Now, I'll tell you, if you do it while you're watching this video, I'll actually send you 31 of them. If you do it right when you're watching this video, we'll put a timer on it. We'll make sure that you get 31 of our best lead sources. But for everybody else, you'll at least get the 17. Again, it's 727-287-5993, and you're going to text the words ClubWealth to that number. And I'll tell you this. You need to implement multiple lead sources. It's not going to absolve you of the necessity or responsibility to get out there and prospect, but it will help augment your prospecting with other leads coming in. A lot of these sources are free. You don't even have to pay for them unless you close the transaction. So grab the lead sources, check them out. And then when you do, somebody like Grayson on our team is going to give you a call, and he's going to say, or someone on our team will give you a call and say, hey, would you like to do a strategy session with Mark or with Grayson, and have the ability to have them look into your business and take a look at what's going on now, what you're looking to do in the next 24 or 12 to 24 months, and give you a roadmap on exactly how to get there. They'll do that. They'll make that call. And just when they do, just say, yeah, I'm interested. Give me the 55-minute coaching call for free. That'd be my advice. You do that, and your next 12 months is going to be looking pretty good.
Awesome.
My last piece of advice would be to basically be different. Don't be like everybody else, and don't listen to everybody else. Everybody else is going to tell you you're getting up too early. Everybody else is going to tell you you don't need to call that much. Everybody's going to tell you that your dreams are too big. Everybody's going to tell you it doesn't matter. You do what you know you need to do. And so you need to focus and just focus and do the behavior every single day, whatever behavior that is. Like you said, whether you're sending letters, whether you're sending text messages, whether you're sending emails, whether you're phone calling, do it every single day. Just make it part of your life. Once it becomes part of your life, it's now just fun, and it's not work anymore.
Yeah.
So just do it.
Love it. Grayson, what would you give us for a final piece of advice?
I mean, if you want to be the 1%, then you got to do what the other 99% aren't willing to do, right? So that's all I got.
Dude, that's great advice. Fantastic advice.
I read an article yesterday, actually, that said, it talked about how, cold calling is dead, or at least that perception, that myth is out there, and it's widely believed. So, just the fact that the discussion
cold calling
is out there.
Dead.
So
cold calling is dead for the high need for approval crowd who wake up every day and worry about who's going to like me today.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Participation medal crowd.
So if just like Grayson said, if the 99% are not cold calling, or they're not making calls, then you're going to stand out. You're going to be that 1% that's going to get those deals and is going to make that money because others are not doing it. So that was a fantastic point, Grayson.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll wrap it up. Make sure that you text that number with the words ClubWealth so that you can get your lead sources. Check out ProspectBoss.com and go check out ClubWealth.
I love it. Have an awesome day, everybody. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.